Will members wishing to take their seats please come to the table?
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
The Workers' Party's resounding victory in Rochdale, beating the combined forces of all three establishment parties and Reform UK, has been met with universal derision and fear amongst the government, the official opposition, and the mainstream press. The only exception amongst these has been the Financial Times, whose readership can't afford to be fed the same spin as the rest of the British public. The elites attempt to spin a clear and direct expression of democratic will into the breakdown of democracy is laughable. Sunak's speech and the fear-mongering headlines of the establishment press betray a deep insecurity amongst our ruling class. Despite this fear-mongering from the state and the media, Galloway was able to draw first blood in his renewed struggle against the establishment, overwhelming every major political party and catapulting to national prominence a relatively small organisation previously unheard of in mainstream British politics. Contrary to repeated accusations of religious sectarianism, which the mainstream press heaped on Galloway throughout their election coverage, a cursory look at Rochdale's demography and statistics from the by-election show plain as day that the Workers' Party's victory was secured by voters from all of Rochdale's various demographic groups, the majority of which are white British working-class natives. Not since the Brexit referendum has the British elite seemed so clearly terrified. Galloway's party threatens not only the political mainstream, but also the current hegemon of post-Brexit politics, Reform UK. The Workers' Party now has a chance to clasp the baton of anti-establishment politics, to direct the passions unleashed by Brexit further than Reform or the populist right at large ever could, to continue the struggle for national self-determination and sovereignty that has been abandoned by groups like Reform. As you might expect, Reform are unwilling to give up their grip so quickly, and have, in the wake of Rochdale, hastily mobilised to keep their working-class base from considering alternatives to their brand of anti-establishment politics. Lee Anderson's recent defection was covered with far more tact and respect by the establishment press than the derisive smear campaign against Galloway and Rochdale. The populist right and the establishment, both of which performed disastrously at the Rochdale by-election, share a common enemy in the Workers' Party. What they fear is not simply the return of George Galloway to Parliament, but the potential that his party has to undermine the ruling elite's geopolitical and financial schemas, which, beyond the fog of culture war, remain materially unchallenged by the right wing in this country. Their style of pseudo-resistance and its hegemony over working-class anti-establishment politics is coming to a timely end. With little to no real electoral success and an increasingly stagnant viewing figures from its media fronts, Reform and other self-styled dissident forces have failed to properly address concerns fundamental to the operations of the establishment they claim to despise. Economic development is the only way to achieve real national self-determination and common prosperity, something the voters of Rochdale know all too well, having experienced an unprecedented decline in the quality of life throughout the calamitous and drawn-out process of deindustrialization. Domestically, the populist right has failed to address the necessity of rebuilding British infrastructure and industry, dragging them down to 6th place in the Rochdale by-election. The right have failed to mount a resistance to the professional managerial class and the institutions of globalist economic planning, as well as failing to extend the struggle against the EU and ECHR to a struggle against other, arguably more determinant foreign influences on British state policy, such as NATO, a costly and reckless organisation which has never once succeeded in its stated aim of defending countries from invasion, but has on multiple occasions invaded other countries without NATO states ever being in any way directly provoked. At this moment, as real opposition to the establishment comes to the fore, false prophets like Lee Anderson will have their path cleared for them by the mainstream British press and its controlled opposition. Galloway, both during the campaign and after his victory, was dogged by accusations of race baiting from establishment forces. Sam Bidwell, a salaried employee of the leading Thatcherite policy mill, the Adam Smith Institute, describe Galloway's infamous two letters, one aimed generally at the white working class majority in Rochdale and the other at its sizable Muslim minority, as sectarian micro-targeting and as a, quote, sign of integration gone badly wrong. On one level, he's right. At the very least, the integration has gone sorely wrong. All attempts at multi-ethnic integration have proved disastrous under the regime of liberal social and economic management, amounting to little more than a multicultural gloss painted atop the rather deep-rooted antagonisms driving and intensifying inter-ethnic conflict in Britain. What the Workers' Party draws attention to is not the impossibility of cross-ethnic dialogue, the far-right spectre of a looming race war, but on the contrary, Galloway's approach respects the differences between ethnic groups and their varying commitments, and through this respect, this recognition of difference opens up the potential for overcoming the failed paradigm of multiculturalism without collapsing into the emasculated politics of ethnic resentment. What the Workers' Party have really done in writing these two letters is not a sectarian micro-targeting, but a move towards multinaturalism over and above multiculturalism. By first and foremost respecting the dignity of different groups in and through their difference, only then can common interests and shared commitments become apparent, and then fought for. Solidarity remains a watchword for leftists, but like so much else in their tired vocabulary, the term is typically misapplied and misunderstood. The real meaning of solidarity as a principle of politics is the coming together of difference. In this case, peoples each with wholly differing interests, commitments, understandings of the world and themselves, for the sake of a broader common task, something solid, concrete, and tangible. Solidarity, taken as the bedrock of working class politics, means that the private and personal interests of different peoples are real, and that their coming together occurs only around certain concrete, determinate objectives, rather than the satisfaction of some abstract ideological commitment. What brings a brown Muslim and a white Christian together is not that they're identical in their fundamental commitments and prejudices. Far from it. They come together for a specific task at a specific moment to achieve a specific determinate result. Against what Marxism has become in the West, we recall Marx's original definition of communism, the real movement which overcomes the present state of things, the conditions for which are already in existence. Not a utopian project to be imposed by managers, ideologists, or academics. When university leftists critique George Galloway because he isn't communist enough or that he's too socially conservative, really they denigrate the working class, which Galloway is merely an incarnation, a working class which doesn't fit the leftist ideal for how the working class should operate, how they should behave. But the working class never behaves the way its self-appointed masters expect. Galloway is just a sign of the times, a conduit for the rage and passion of this country's rising subaltern, a force of nature, a monster summoned by history to call to task the sins of the elite. So we recommend joining his party, joining this great cyclone amassing just beyond the horizon of Great Britain. We aren't an official Workers' Party channel, so we won't claim to speak for the party or for Galloway. Our channel exists only to support the resurgence of an independent working class politics in Britain. And right now, that politics has its best chance with the Workers' Party. Unique amongst political organisations in Britain today, especially organisations with parliamentary representation, the Workers' Party has the potential to become a rallying point for a plethora of divergent positions irreconcilable to the liberal imagination, a contestation ground for new ideas and new strategic practices to bring life back to Britain's stagnant, ossified political arena. This struggle doesn't end with one by-election, just as the struggle for Brexit shouldn't have ended with the referendum. We have to push further, always further, for the sake of finding in the dust and the dirt of our deindustrialised, hollowed-out, weakened and embarrassed country any and all flickers of light that might point us to renewal over and above the success of the past.